Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 154. Kristy Titus, increasing your hunting fitness, diet, exercise, and mindset. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Mike Bierman, and I shot the living room buck. And you are listening to my favorite hunting podcast, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hey, this is Dan Kaufman. I shot the Kaufman buck. You're about to listen to another episode of my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Mark Hammer from Antler Action Products, and I shot the hammer buck. And you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. My name is Jay, and you know what? Thank you for pushing play on your audio device and tuning in with us right here. And thank you for giving me your ear for 1 hour. It's nothing I enjoy more than talking deer hunting with somebody just like you. And there's another guy over here who I also enjoy talking deer hunting with, and that's the co-host of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, Dusty Phillips from Ohio. What's happening, my friend?
Hey, everybody. What's happening, Jay?
And we have had a beautiful stretch of weather here in the Northeast. It's awesome. Cool nights, warm days. Just can't complain, man.
Yeah, it's getting better every week here. Able to get some hay on the ground and be tinkering with that, and hopefully be baling by the end of this podcast.
It is definitely hay season. There's no question about it. It's been must get nice and dry on the ground as you're tilling it up.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be dry. A little moisture this morning, but that's okay. We've got a pretty heavy dew here in Ohio, but other than that, everything's good.
Gotcha. How is that a good workout? I mean, I remember when I used to do some haying when I was growing up, and it used to be one of the most exhausting, heavy workouts. And I'm sure the equipment's changed now, but we used to, walk behind the flatbed and toss the bales onto the rail by hand.
I got a bale chute, so I just it comes out of the back of the baler and goes onto the wagon. So whoever's baling with me can grab it right off the chute, stack it on the wagon.
Gotcha, man. Well, one of our guests this week, speaking of workouts, is it's a very kind of an interesting story. And now and then we touch on physical fitness when it comes to hunting. And our guest this week is Kristy Titus, who actually got into physical fitness because of the demands that she was experiencing in the woods with her father while elk hunting, and realized that she was out of shape. And she just decided to do something about it. So we go through her entire regimen of what she does at the gym, how she eats, how she got in shape, and now why she feels that being in shape can really help your hunting, especially the Western hunts. And I gotta be honest, I can remember, although I didn't pull an elk tag, my friend did, and we would hike for several days a week up one of the biggest peaks in New Hampshire to get ready for the big out west elk hunt that he was going on. I can appreciate that. I don't know if that applies to all parts of the country, but we thought we'd explore this a little bit today.
Yeah, definitely from not speaking from any kind of experience, because I've not been elk hunting, but the physical demand that elk hunting, especially archery elk, it takes somebody with a set of legs and the physical ability to go mile after mile.
Right. And you experienced some of that during deer season when you came to New Hampshire, even though we didn't see anything on the ground. The physical aspect of hiking is definitely prominent in New Hampshire, and even more so when you get out to the big mountains out west.
Oh, no doubt about it. New Hampshire definitely makes your blood pump for sure, hiking up and down the mountains.
Sure does. So, but before we turn to Kristy Titus, let's turn to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. In our first story this week, South Carolina Senate revives Coyote Bounty Program. This article was reported by Cassie Cope of the Island Packet News website. The South Carolina Senate revived a coyote bounty program overriding Governor Nikki Haley's veto on Wednesday. The Senate reconsidered the proposal after earlier sustaining Haley's veto. The South Carolina House also voted to override Haley's veto. The program requires the State Department of Natural Resources to tag 16 coyotes across the state. If a hunter bags a tagged coyote, they would receive a reward, a free lifetime hunting license. Previously, lawmakers had proposed a $1,000 reward for killing tagged coyotes. Haley said the proposal didn't make sense. State Department of Natural Resource officers should not be capturing coyotes and then releasing them back into the wild. She urged lawmakers to sustain her veto in the interest of common sense and public safety. However, Representative Mike Pitts defended the proposal, saying coyotes are decimating the deer herd. Others have complained the non-native predators are killing pets. The pilot bounty program was designed to increase the number of people hunting coyotes, Pitts said, thus reducing the population beyond the 16 tagged coyotes. Tom Gallagher appointed to TSAA Board of Directors. This article was originally written by Alan Clemens on the deeranddeerhunting.com website. Tom Gallagher has joined the Board of Directors of the Tree Stand Safety Awareness Organization, which works to bring safety awareness to the public. Gallagher has been actively involved in the outdoor industry for more than 4 decades. He played an instrumental role in the evolution of tree stands and related hunting products. Gallagher retired recently from Cabela's, where he served as Senior Director of Merchandising. He currently works for Independent Hunting, LLC, which is owned by Fred and Michelle Eichler, and serves on the board of Hunter Specialties. Gallagher previously served on the board of the Archery Trade Association and Tree Stand Manufacturers Association. His background and unwavering passion for promoting safe tree stand use make him an excellent addition to the TSSA board. TSSA is an evolving nonprofit organization of hunting industry leaders focused on significantly reducing tree stand accidents through promotion, education, and best practices. Tree stand falls are the leading cause of serious injury and death to deer hunters and virtually are all preventable. Midwest moose could make endangered species list. This article was originally reported by Javier Cerna on OutdoorNews.com. A petition from a pair of nonprofit organizations to place moose on the federal endangered species list in 4 Midwestern states, including Minnesota, has cleared the first of several hurdles. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said last week the petition provided substantial scientific or commercial information that listing under the Endangered Species Act may be warranted, launching a 12-month status review, which is the next step in a process that could take several years before a decision. The public has until August 2nd to submit comments regarding the decisions to proceed. The position was brought forth last July by the Center for Biological Diversity, which also has advocated for keeping wolves on the endangered species list in the Great Lakes states. This position would place the moose subspecies known as the Northwest moose on the endangered species list in Minnesota, North Dakota, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Of those states, only North Dakota has a moose hunt. Minnesota called off its hunt in the Arrowhead region in 2013 after the population further plummeted. Colette Adkins, CBD's Minneapolis-based attorney, said the petition highlights the risk of losing moose because of climate change. The endangered species list is the best tool we have to save endangered species, Atkins said. We think more is needed to be done for moose, and federal listing would lead to additional protection that the state hasn't provided. In North Dakota, the species' traditional range in the northeast portion of the state has been in decline, and the state has closed hunting in applicable zones. But moose have actually been expanding, according to Jason Smith, a big game biologist for the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Atkins, however, said hunting moose in North Dakota is irresponsible when the species is in decline elsewhere in the region. Wisconsin hasn't conducted any moose research, and Wisconsin's DNR big game ecologist Kevin Wallenfang said there are fewer than 50 moose roaming the state, most of which have wandered down from Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Russ Mason, the Michigan DNR's wildlife chief, said his state's moose population has declined for a variety of reasons, including habitat loss, predation, and climate change. There's an estimated population of 500 moose, mostly in the western UP of Michigan. For the complete story, please check the OutdoorNews.com website. Editorial note: does anyone else listening find it ironic that the same organization that wants wolves on the endangered species list and therefore protected from hunting also wants to have moose listed as endangered in the same states? Has it not occurred to them that the reason the moose may be declining in numbers might be due to wolf predation? Doesn't this seem like an attempt to take control of animal population management away from state wildlife biologists who use hunting as part of their equation and place it in the control of the federal government? If you read between the lines, this looks like an attempt to use well-intended federal programs to slowly take away the ability to hunt certain species and even hunt certain land in the name of protecting many species from the very hunters who have funded their existence for decades. Thanks to groups like this, Michigan no longer has a wolf hunting season or state control of their population numbers. These wolves are decimating the Upper Peninsula deer herd due to a lack of scientifically based wolf population controls. Does this mean that white-tailed deer will also eventually be put on the endangered species list? This is something that all people who hunt, fish, or enjoy the outdoors through other methods needs to watch. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here's Kristy Titus.
Kristy Titus, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening?
Just living the dream in Central Oregon.
In Oregon. Very interesting. So, Kristy, tell us about yourself. Are you from Oregon originally, or is this a transplant for you?
No, I'm a native Oregonian and born and raised in Oregon and lived my whole life here. My family's all from the lumber industry. So my grandparents, loggers, truck drivers. My dad was in the mill industry as a millwright. So grew up around the woods, in the woods, packing into the backcountry on mules when I was a kid. So that's just kind of how I grew up in Oregon in wild places for sure.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great childhood. Now,
yeah, not bad at all.
You're doing quite a bit of fitness, and I don't know if it's necessarily connected to hunting or because you hunt, but we've noticed that you're into bodybuilding and nutrition, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about all that stuff because I think diet and nutrition is good for you no matter whether you're a deer hunter or a non-deer hunter. So I wanted to pick your brain about how you stay in shape and the things that you do to do that and what you eat and that kind of thing, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, hunting and nutrition and fitness really are the backbone of why I kind of ended up in my nutrition life, because I was a pretty overweight kid and I'm not athletic in any way, shape, or form. I'm not coordinated in any way, shape, or form. So
Okay.
team sports was not something I excelled at or even really wanted to participate in. Really struggled with my weight as a kid. And I was on an elk hunt with my dad. And I always loved going to the backcountry, obviously, on the mules, and we did that whole deal. And I was on an elk hunt. I was 16, and the elk had been pushed into some really, really deep canyons and some really rough spots, and I was pursuing a cow, and I went in and out of this real rough spot the day before, and I was coming out of this deep draw, and it was everything I could do to put one foot in front of the other. I was toast and physically just spent, and I was crawling out of there on mental fortitude. And the next day my dad kept looking over the edge well, that's where the elk are, and I was like, man, I felt like dying yesterday, and I was afraid to go in there. I was sore and I hurt, and, coming out, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but you get so gassed where you almost taste blood in your mouth, You guys ever have that?
Yeah, I've had a couple moments back. Not recently. I can't say it's happened.
Okay, well,
recently.
I was spent to that level, and at that point when I was 16, I was like, boy, this is a problem, and if I want to keep hunting, even to do anything in life, I need to get my health under control. So in my 20s, that's where my fitness became very important, in nutrition as well.
So what was the first thing that you did to change your physical conditioning?
I started going to a gym.
Okay.
And I started working out, and I got to where, I was pretty fit. I think my body fat percentage was around 23%. And I wanted to take it to another level. There, once you get in that gym environment, you get around a bunch of super, super healthy people that are constantly striving for more and better and demanding more out of their bodies. And, you kind of buy into that mindset. It's very intoxicating. Conversely, you can get around people that are very unhealthy, and you can start buying into that, where you're doing movie nights and eating pizza and ice cream on Fridays. And, as a kid, you can get sucked into kind of two different worlds. And my younger life, I got sucked into the gym, and I was having a hard time getting to that next level of leanness. And I hired a nutritionist who's kind of world famous. Her name is Kathy Sasson, and she's a world-famous adventure racer, and she actually founded all the protocol for Gold's Gyms in the late 90s.
Okay.
And her and her husband, Will Smith, or Billy Smith, were American gladiators, and he's a multi-time Olympian competitor, and I trained under them for 10 years. And that's where I learned everything I learned about nutrition and fitness, and kind of, fueling your body becomes a science between nutrient ratios, macronutrients, and time.
Okay.
To achieve a force performance.
Let's break that down a little bit more. When you first started going to the gym, what types of exercises were you focused on?
Well, I was doing cardio and lifting weights, but I wasn't wearing a heart rate monitor. So there's different types of cardiovascular training you can do. You can do what's called target heart rate cardio, which you use an age-predicted maximum to generate target heart rate, where you want to keep your heart rhythm for ultimate fat loss. And then there's, high-intensity cardio training, which is really good for your stroke volume of your heart, cardiovascular system, things like that. So there's a couple different caveats to cardiovascular training. I was doing it wrong. Let's just put it that way. Because if you do it too low, your heart rate's too low and you're dragging bum, you're not burning fat efficiently. If you do it too high or above your target heart rate, you tend to burn a lot of sugar reserves and then start breaking down muscle for fuel. So there's a range where you really want to hit, where you preserve muscle and kill as much fat in an exercise as you possibly can. So I started learning how to do that correctly, what that target heart rate was.
And how do you determine that? Like, how do you know if you're in the right zone?
It's your age predicted maximum, right? So there's a formula. If you just Google age predicted maximum, it's 220 minus your age, and then you multiply it by a percentage. And that percentage that you use as a baseline depends on your current level of health fitness. So if you've been pretty sedentary, you haven't been working out, you're going to want to start a little bit lower. So 60 to 65% of your age predicted maximum. As you become fitter, you're going to go 65 to 75% of your age predicted maximum is what you're going to want to hit. And then what I do is once you find that number, you go plus or minus 4 beats a minute. And that's the range you want to stay in. So you can kind of gauge that way. I try to stick most of the time around 70%.
Okay. And are you wearing a heart rate monitor the whole time now, or are there other devices as well?
Yeah, when I'm doing cardiovascular training, like on an elliptical or a treadmill, I'm wearing a heart rate monitor. I run a lot at home, so at least 30 miles a week I go run. That trail running, I'm not wearing a heart rate monitor. I'm just going and I'm running, and that's strictly to improve stroke volume of my heart, circulatory strength, things like that. So
when you started out, was your goal to get fit and decrease body fat and build muscle, or was it? What was your initial goal? Just to get leaner?
Not be the fat girl. I wanted to have a boyfriend really bad. I couldn't buy a date in high school, right? I was that girl. I didn't want to be the fat girl anymore. I didn't want to be the girl that sat at a table. I was, 20, 21 years old, and I was the girl that, all of my girlfriends got dates and guys calling them, and I was riding my horse, and that got old. And I didn't want to be fat anymore. I got tired of being looked over and feeling like crud, and not being able to do the things I wanted to do. So for me, it started out as I definitely wanted to lose weight, like just get me out of my own skin kind of feeling, know?
And how did it progress? Once you dropped the weight, what was your next goal? Or did you even have other goals that you wanted to hit after that? No,
I dropped the weight and I decided, I'm super competitive is just in my nature. Everything I do, I become very, very competitive, and probably to a fault. So if I'm going to go on a diet, I'm not just going to lose weight. I'm going to do a bodybuilding show, or, if I'm going to hunt, I'm not just going to hunt. I'm going to do it for a living. Or if I'm going to, when I do things, I take it kind of to this almost obsessive level. And I did the same thing with health and fitness and nutrition. And I said, I'm going to do this because I'm going to prove everybody wrong. Everybody that made fun of me, everybody that teased me. I'd go home from school crying every day. I wanted to do it for me. Like, hey, I can do this. If I can do this, anybody can do this. And I knew so many girls that were like me that were kind of going through that same struggle. It's brutal being a kid. It's brutal being a young woman. It's brutal being a woman. It's, we're hard on ourselves. And I wanted to just prove to myself mostly that I could do it.
Gotcha. All right. When you were talking about the nutrition part of things, you wanted to drop the weight, you started exercising. How much did the diet come into play?
Well, I was doing it pretty okay, but I was doing it wrong. So, the hardest thing for a lot of people to wrap their mind around is in order for your body to function optimally, you have to feed it and fuel it as if you're almost a diabetic. And so that means eating the correct percentage or quantities of food throughout a certain time constraint all day long. So meaning, like, you'll see a lot of people I'm on a 1,200 calorie diet, I'm doing Weight Watchers, and they'll count points, and they'll eat like a bird all day long, and then they'll eat all their points at night. And then after a while, they're like, well, why am I not losing weight? And it's like, well, you're eating all your points at night. And so it's changing how you look at food. Instead of viewing food as a per day quantity, like, oh, I get all this per day, food needs to be looked at as a per meal. So if I'm eating 1,500 calories a day and my goal is 5 meals a day, all 5 of my meals then need to have the same caloric content. But beyond that, each meal and those calories need to be derived from the same percentage of sources. So same quantity of protein, same quantity of carbs, and same quantity of fat in every meal all day long, day after day after day.
Interesting. All right. Do you
and that caloric content and that nutrient ratio that you abide to is on a time restriction as well. So your body can only remain stable as far as your blood glucose levels for no more than 4 hours. So you have to eat every 4 hours, otherwise your body goes into hypoglycemia. So I eat every 3, 2.5.
Okay.
All day long.
And that's when you're awake.
Small meal.
Then you go into your fast while you sleep, right? And then you start with a breakfast. Now, one of the things I've noticed about people who are working out and trying to stay fit, they tend to eat the same meals over and over and over. Is that the same with you?
For sure. It's just easier for me to meal prep, 5 days worth of lunches, snacks, and just do, okay, here's my snack number 1, here's my lunch, here's my snack number 2, here's my breakfast, and pan that out for 5 days. I rotate my foods, but basically the same thing every day, and then vary my dinner, just because it's just easier to be habitual and consistent with repetition. Okay. And what I found, the leaner I got, there's specific foods that I feel better eating, so I tend to want to eat them over and over. I maintain a level of blood sugar stability, energy levels, a feeling of fullness and satisfaction from certain foods longer. So as you progress in your fitness journey, you tend to want to eat those foods over and over that make you feel better instead of foods that burn fast. So for an example, you can make a protein shake. I work with a company called Wilderness Athlete. They make great nutrition products. And I can make a protein shake, which has 25 grams of protein, throw a banana in, throw some almond milk in, and I've got a 300-calorie meal, throw some almonds in, have 5 grams of fat, 25 grams of protein. But I drink that, and 2 hours later I'm hungry. Or I can eat the same nutrient ratios, and I can have 3 ounces of ham, a little over a quarter cup of oatmeal with some freeze-dried fruit in it, and I'm full for, much longer duration of time. So that all goes down to glycemic index of food. So it becomes an even greater science beyond just what you're eating. It goes into the GI as well. So
wow. Okay. So what types of, so you eat like 5 times a day, is that correct?
Yeah, at least 4, most of the time 5.
Okay, 4 to 5. And the first, generally speaking, is the first meal of the day very similar day after day?
Yeah, I eat the same thing pretty much habitually every day, first meal. I eat within an hour of waking and then up until 2 hours before bed. Up until 2 hours.
Okay, got it. All right. And
so if I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock and I have dinner at 6, I probably won't eat again before bed.
Okay.
But if I have an early dinner, let's say a 5 o'clock dinner, and I'm not going to bed till 10 or 11, I'll probably have what I would call like a half meal or a light snack before bed.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And what types of meals are you having for the breakfast? Or what have you found to work the best for your day or your first meal of the day?
I do uncooked old-fashioned oatmeal with almond milk and either 2 dates or some freeze-dried food like apples or primarily apples just because they're low glycemic. And then I burnt out on egg whites some time ago, so I do super, super lean ham. Straight ham and oatmeal several times a day, several meals a day if I want to.
Lean ham. Interesting. I haven't heard the lean ham thing yet.
For sure. The only thing, like when I'm competitive with ham, I have to eliminate it from my diet 4 weeks out from contest just because of the sodium content.
All right, so it retains water because of the sodium. Okay. Now, let's shift on to the next meal of the day and the three in between dinner. You said you vary your dinners, generally speaking. What is the other meals of the day typically look like?
I'll do quinoa and chicken. I'm not a big chicken eater. Like, I eat chicken because I have to, not because I want to. So I eat a lot of ground elk tacos. So I'm a big street taco fan. I make everything into a street taco. So I'll do ground elk, or I'll take and season meat and smoke it and do street taco style. I'm a big taco eater. Corn tortillas are something I can eat up until the day of my contest.
Okay.
So super good for you, and I eat a lot of corn tortillas. Salads I'm cautious with because the things I tend to want to put on a salad make them extremely high in fat. I don't really care for balsamic dressing, and you even have to be careful with those. Some of them are really high in fat, but for the most part, I kind of avoid green salads, and I just do meat and vegetables. I ate a lot of squashes, butternut squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash. I like squash better than sweet potatoes, but I do eat a few sweet potatoes.
Okay.
So kind of mix it up.
Gotcha. How much of the diet, you said elk, do you have, how much of your diet is game?
A lot of it.
Okay.
Pretty much almost all of it. I mean, the only thing I buy at a grocery store, because I don't eat anything that comes out of a box for the most part anymore. In fact, I just wrote an article about different types of fat this last week, and I literally had to go to the grocery store and take photos because I didn't have things in my house that contained polyunsaturated fats and things like that. So I had to go seek those things out, just because I don't have it in my house. But I make my own dried fruit. So in the summer times, I go to a farmer's market and I dehydrate fruit. I make my own jerky. I make my own protein bars. I make pretty much everything that I eat.
Okay.
I make my own almond butter, nut butter, whatever. I mean, I'm pretty neurotic about it.
Okay. Very nice. That's nice. Now, when it comes down to treats, do you have any like days off where you might actually have something that's not supposed to be on the diet?
Yeah, it's called going to a restaurant.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, no, and that's where life gets a little complicated for me because I travel so much, and so I've adopted some behaviors when I'm traveling. I make my own meal replacement muffins at home that have oatmeal, sugar-free maple syrup for a sweetener, protein powder, egg whites, and fresh fruit.
Okay.
And I bake those little muffins and I bring them with me. And because what happens when you go places like a restaurant, there's always this infinite unknown quantity of fat and hidden fats and things that are in meals to make them yummy. So even if you order a grilled chicken sandwich, unless you tell them absolutely dry on the bun if you're a bread eater, which I'm not, but a lot of times they'll take to make the bun nice and golden. They slather the top of it with butter to toast it, and they do all these things. So you have to be really, really careful in restaurants. In fact, I have whole restaurant eating guides. But just to me, going out and living kind of somewhat normally amongst the masses is a bit of a struggle to maintain, goals because you can't weigh, measure, and be absolute in everything you're eating. So those are my off times.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about some of the numbers that we were looking at? Like what was your % body fat when you started, and what did it get down to? I think you mentioned you got down to 23. What did you start at?
Oh, I don't even know what I started at.
Okay.
When I started doing and training with the IntraFit program, I started at 23% body fat.
Okay.
The last show I did, I underwater weighed just par of 6%. So, and I maintain around 18%
okay.
now is roughly where I maintain. Now, I can lose a percentage of body fat a week if I'm 100%. So if I know I want to go somewhere and I want to shred and get lean, in 4 weeks, I can drop 3 to 4 body fat percentage points if I need to, if I'm careful.
Okay. Very interesting. Are there any cookbooks or chefs that inspire you?
The problem with really good cooking is it has really hearty ingredients, and
Right.
you really have to watch that stuff. So I take recipes and I modify them. And, it's when I'm super serious and I'm getting ready for a contest, even if I make a homemade chili and it's healthy and it's lean, for me to actually quantify the exact amount of beans I'm getting versus burger meat from my elk or whatever, it's almost impossible. So I stop almost recipe cooking and really just focus on solid portions.
Okay.
This is the chicken and this is the squash and this is the broccoli, and it's separate chunks so I can measure it, because to have those ultra performance goals, you really have to, it all counts.
Right. Okay.
Carbs, fat, protein.
Got it. All right. So you really do your own cooking. You don't follow recipes, so to speak, because they're designed to taste great, and not necessarily just be on the fuel-based side of a diet. This is
and that's how you have to learn to think about food, is not as this is for my enjoyment or palate. This is for performance.
Right. Yeah. It may not be all that fun to eat. And do you ever get bored with the meals, or is it? I would assume you would, but at some point, do you find yourself, boy, this is really boring? And obviously, the goal outweighs whatever the food tastes like in some ways. But do you ever find yourself contemplating that?
Yeah, I worked at a restaurant when I did a couple shows in my previous life. And there was a couple times in my life where I wanted bread so bad, I went in the back of the house and I ate a roll, but I would chew it up and then spit it out. Not that I was purging, I didn't swallow it,
Right.
That is neurotic and crazy. And, that you don't want to get to that place, but for me, it's just been, once you get that mindset that this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm not doing, for me, one bad meal a week can constitute not losing. So you've worked 6 days, your derriere off in the gym and eating clean, and you have one bad meal and you ruin all your progress. It's not worth it. At some point, the reward in that meal or that food is not worth the cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just one can mess it up if you're not watching.
Just one.
Wow.
Everybody's different. I'm one of those people, I always say I'm like an easy keeping horse. You can put me out in a dry lot and feed me once a week and work me to death and I'm going to look the same. That's just how I'm built. Some people lose lean mass very quickly. Some people lose body fat very quickly. Every body is different. So when I'm doing a nutrition protocol for people, it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. Some girls, they're like, oh, my gosh, I have to do 45 minutes of cardio now for my show, blah, 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 and they're freaking out, and I'm over there doing 2 hours. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, lucky you. You're only doing 45 minutes. I never get to do that, everybody is different.
Okay. Should each person have their own individual plan, and should it look something like what you're doing as far as just understanding that it's not for taste, it's for fuel and planning, more so, if you wanted to lose weight?
It depends on the person's goal, right? And their level of commitment. So it has to be individualized, because what I like to eat might not be what you enjoy eating. And so that's, when I was doing nutrition protocol for clients, I specialized in clients with diabetes is really what chronic disease conditions, and then performance as well. But every body is different. Every person is different. And so, if you tell me, hey, I'm having really bad sugar cravings in the night, and I'm looking at your deal and you're eating breakfast 2 hours after you wake up, I'm going to be able to diagnose that your afternoon cravings or evening cravings are because you're doing something wrong in the morning. And conversely, if you overeat at night, you typically aren't as hungry in the morning, and there's reasons for that. But if you journal appropriately, I can pretty much diagnose what people are doing wrong at different meals. And usually if someone's not being accountable and writing stuff down, I can find out pretty fast, and your body will tell you exactly what you're doing every time.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Dusty's been a little quiet over there. I hope he's still with us.
I am, and I just got done eating an oatmeal cream pie and a cupcake and drinking chocolate milk, just thinking about how bad you guys got it, really.
Now,
That's good.
Kristy, he's joking. He's been on this
Clearly.
gym diet kick for the last, 6 weeks, Dusty?
Oh,
longer?
No, it's been longer than that.
Longer than that.
Since January.
Since January. So now I want to transition into asking you about some of your hunting techniques and strategies. But before we get that, Dusty, do you have any questions relative to your whole exact experience relative to Kristy's experience? Like, is there anything that you want to ask her about your protocol?
No, but I want to get a little bit more in the detail on your workout schedule. Tell us how often and how long, and kind of break down your gym schedule. As a hunter, this is something that we all can use. If you don't mind, Kristy, run through your gym schedule pretty thoroughly, if you would.
Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to working out. So if I had my druthers, I'd work out 3 to 4 hours a day. Like, I enjoy it. So for me, what I do, I get up, I go to my mother's, which she houses my cardio equipment, and I do 75 minutes to 90 minutes a day when I'm home of target heart rate cardio. In the evenings, I do CrossFit at least 3 days a week, and the nights that I'm not doing CrossFit, I run 6 miles. So I'm a double dutier. Now, granted, I have no kids and no life, so that's for me. That's what I like to do. I want to do the cardio that's going to cut the body fat because I put it on really easy. I want to put the miles on the trail to run because for me, mentally, that's my piece at the end of the day. I love a sunset run. Feels good. I've got a dog. I call him a terrorist. He likes to go. And then the weight training is really important because it keeps me strong for when I'm climbing mountains with heavy loads.
Gotcha. Yeah, it all makes sense. No, thank you for running through that. But
very cool. Very, very cool. Should all hunters employ this type of thoughtfulness into their diet and training, do you think?
I think anybody that wants to live the healthiest life possible should put thought into what they're eating and how they're using their body.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's diseases and there's conditions like cancer and things that happen that we can't control. But two things that we have absolute control of in our life is what we eat and how we exercise. And heart disease is the number one killer in the United States of America, and most of the time it's preventable. People choose to die of it.
Okay, gotcha.
And my father's struggling with it right now. I mean, he's case in point. They've told him, hey, if you don't lose 20 to 30 pounds, you will have a heart attack. You have a 99% chance of having a heart attack if you don't get yourself under control. Has he chose to do something about it? Not really.
Okay.
Not really. Because people have this mindset of, I'm too busy. I don't have time. I have kids. I have a job. I have these things. Nobody has time for a heart attack. Nobody has time to die. So at some point in your life, you have to look at yourself and say, what do I want? Do I want to have a heart attack and die young? Or do I want to do everything I can and fight like hell to prevent that?
Right.
And that's a choice that you make.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's talk about some hunting. Let's transition out of the diet world and the nutrition world. Let's talk about some hunting, if we could. What types of hunting are you typically doing? I know you're a Western hunter, but tell us about some of the terrain and the things that you're going after. For sure. So I hunt year-round. In the winter months in Oregon, we can hunt bobcats with hounds. So I've got one of my best friends has hounds, and we run hounds all winter in the snow. If I'm not running hounds here, I've got some friends in Utah, High Top Outfitters. They've got a bunch of hounds, and I'll run mountain lions with them. I'll hunt wolves in British Columbia, Canada. I went up there and spent 10 days this year. In the spring, I melded into hunting turkeys, doing some fishing trips. May and June, I hunt black bears. I assistant guide in British Columbia for black bear hunts up there. And then I also hunt for myself. And then going into the fall, I hunt primarily elk because I co-host the Team Elk television show with Brandon Bates. So I hunt elk, and then I also hunt a bit of mule deer in the late winter months. I like to hunt the rut.
And then also a little bit of, well, I haven't done blacktail hunting in quite a while, but I used to hunt blacktail quite a bit here in Oregon in the late season. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of starts over.
Let's talk about some of your elk and mule deer and maybe some blacktail strategies, if you don't mind. Dusty, you want to kind of walk Kristy through some of the questions about some of the strategies and tactics that she's using for those three types of animals?
Well, absolutely. Enough about fitness. How about that?
Yeah. All the serious stuff. We got it over with now.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way.
You lost me at like prepping meals and stuff.
Oh boy.
I'm out. Just aggravating you though. But let's run through some of your setup. What kind of camouflage you wearing on these adventures?
So, being a female hunter, when I started hunting, there was no women's camo. I mean, my dad and I, as a kid, I went down to the GI surplus and bought old Army camo, right?
Right.
And I was Anderson or whoever for the week. But the advent of women's camouflage, which I'm really, really honored to have been such a big part of that transition, working with a lot of big brands and names to help implement women's camo. Cabela's Outfit Her Camo, they're doing a tremendous job between the Outfit Her line and the XPG line, which is their extreme performance gear line, on women's outdoor apparel, and that's what I wear.
Okay, perfect. And that's come a long way from the Army gear to now.
No, for sure. And, the cool thing is, I'm a pretty extreme hunter, going in some really rough spots. And, there's the boot manufacturers. Everybody is really starting to take heed. But Mindel boots, they're the only boot that I've found that is a true Western stiff sole sheep type hunting boot that is made on the last for women. And as far as footwear goes, that is a night and day difference for me. I hear a lot of people complain that their calves are burning up and they're sore. Well, that's a footwear issue, and so it's pretty awesome just to see great products out there now for ladies.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Let's get into. Do you pack a backpack? Any particular brand?
Depends what I'm doing. Yeah. So I've used a lot of different backpacks for my extended stay hunts. Kafaru, Aaron Snyder over there at Kafaru has been fabulous. He has made me 2 different packs. I send him in my hip measurements, my torso measurements, the cubic inches I want on a pack, and he custom makes my packs and ships them to my door, and they're lights out. They've performed really well. They're a really robust, hardy pack. I've also used Stone Glacier packs. A gentleman named Kurt designs those. They're a great pack. Maybe not quite as, my opinion, maybe not quite as robust as the Kafaru packs, but also really good backpacks. And then Eberly Stock makes some packs for Team Elk that we use and carry on a more day-to-day basis. But Kafaru also makes those lightweight day-type packs as well now, which is awesome.
Very cool. Let's open up the zipper. Let's say we're going on a blacktail deer hunt. Let's open the zipper in the backpack and run us through what you pack in there.
Pretty much all my hunts are like basically the same things. I've got a buck knife because I carry, it's called the open season caper is the knife I carry, and I spend some money on my knives. I like the S30V steel, which is their highest quality steel. And like this year, for instance, I caped 6 bulls with 1 small knife and boned them, quartered them in the field, and did not sharpen my knife. So it's a $100 knife. It's worth every penny as far as I'm concerned. The blades don't snap off. You're not replacing blades. You just roll. But I always have fire starting capabilities with me. I don't go anywhere without a GPS because I'm absolutely navigation dense. I don't know where I'm going from one minute to the next. And I'm really, because I'm a Western hunter, I use Onyx maps so I can tell land ownership information. And if I'm hunting with a partner, I've got that Garmin 655T GPS. I can see where my partner is on my GPS. We can use two-way radio to communicate. And so I always have a solid GPS with me. Water. I bring a Hydrate and Recover from Wilderness Athlete with me. I drink 1 of those a day to prevent dehydration and muscle cramping, replace electrolytes, things like that, while I'm on the field, or in the field, I should say. Binoculars, rangefinder, Swarovski's got the built-in binocular rangefinder. Always have that with me. Rain gear. I bring a really, really packable, lightweight rain gear. Cabela's came out with their Instinct Light and rain gear this year, and it folds up into little tiny duffels that weigh nothing. So if I'm going somewhere like Canada where it rains every day and I'm expecting it to rain every day, I bring guide wear, which is a fishing rain gear. But if I'm going somewhere where intermittent rain might be possible, I always bring a lightweight packable rain gear. I don't go anywhere without a down jacket or a down vest, depending on if I'm fall or winter months hunting. I use a hydrophobic down. Again, Cabela's XPG. They make a lightweight hydrophobic down. It's really price efficient as far as being affordable. And I can roll that up, put it in a dry bag, put it in my pack. It doesn't weigh anything. It doesn't take up any space, and loft it up if I need it and have warmth. So warming layers, I always have hand warmers with me because I get cold easy, and the worst thing you want is to, hold up your rifle and your hands are so cold you can't press a trigger, or your trigger pull is poor, your manipulation with that. Boy, I don't know. I have to think, keep thinking on the rest there, but that's some of my tops. Food. I always have food with me.
I love the excitement you get talking about this backpack, really. Is there anything else that you pack in there?
Oh boy.
Pretty much covered.
Boy, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But yeah, that's okay. kind of the gist there. Obviously, small first aid kit, things like that. But if I'm bow hunting, I've got a bow tool with me. Buck Knives makes a bow tool. I don't go anywhere without that thing. But that's kind of what I roll in my pack, roughly.
Right, good deal. Okay, what kind of bow are you shooting these days?
Well, I just got the new Cabela's Fortitude L, which is just now coming out on the market, which is a pretty sweet bow. I'm getting the same feet per second speed out of that I was getting out of my PSE DNASP, which is, those are known and notorious for being super fast bows. And I shot them side by side today, and that Fortitude L is giving me 3 feet a second slower than my DNASP. So pretty pleased with that. I like the draw cycle on it. It's very smooth. So that's what I'm shooting this year, and I'm so far really, really pleased with the bow overall.
Gotcha. What any particular arrows that you're shooting out of that bow?
I've been shooting Easton Injections for 2 or 3 years now, and I know Victory arrows. Victory makes the VAP, the armor piercing, which are a micro diameter that are also good arrows. But I switched to the Easton Injections and I'm using a deep six insert on those. And depending on the broadhead, if I can't find the broadhead I want, I just buy an outsert for them. But I'm really pleased with the Easton Injections. They're super tiny diameter, and my penetration on them is unbelievable compared to a standard arrow. Like I used to shoot a Carbon Express Maxima Hunter, and I just don't get the penetration out of those that I do out of the Injections. So I've full-time switched.
Gotcha.
I'm a big believer in that small diameter.
Any particular broadhead that you normally tip your arrow with?
I'm a broadhead flirt. I've had really good success with a small broadhead company called Heartcraft.
Did I hear you right? A broadhead flirt?
Yeah, I flirt with a lot of broadheads. Broadhead flirt.
Right.
Yeah, I switch around a lot. The Heartcraft makes a broadhead that I've been pretty pleased with. It's a cut-on contact broadhead. What's neat about it is I can shoot it, open up the broadhead, flip all the 3 blades around, and I have a brand new broadhead, so I can practice with the same broadhead I actually hunt with, which is super cool, and they're sharp.
So are you more of a fixed or mechanical broadhead?
No mechanicals in my state, so I go fixed.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense.
Also, I've got the Muzzy buzz cut stingers I've been flirting with, and then this year I was introduced with my new flirtation, which will be the kudu broadhead. And those are pretty interesting because the way the blade is chiseled, it actually carves a channel because it spins the arrow, causing a carved wound channel instead of just slicing. So I'm pretty excited to see how those perform on big game this year.
Gotcha. Yeah. is tree stand preference. Hang on, climber, ground blind. What do you prefer?
I like a ground blind, but if I'm hunting alone, like for elk hunting, if I'm hunting in the rut pretty quiet and the bulls aren't bugling, I'll target some wallows, and I do a climber because I can strap my climber on my backpack, and I'm portable. I can go wherever I want. I can set my stand whatever wind condition I want, depending on where I want to sit. And I like being able to have independence. So the climber offers me that. They only weigh 15 to 17 pounds, depending on the climber. And then what I do for my own security is I just take a nylon strap and I attach the upper portion with the lower portion, and I take just baby steps, and I never have to worry about dropping it and like dangling, if you will, from the tree. And I was talking to Vicki Ciancerillo from Archer's Choice, and she knows how to actually hang a tree stand, which I'm super impressed with because I don't know how to do that. I climb. But we have trees out here that afford the opportunity to climb. So.
Yeah, good deal. Okay. Awesome. Jay, you want to get into a particular hunt?
Yeah, I'd love to go on a hunt with you, Kristy. And think about a memorable hunt you've been on recently, or maybe it's one in the past. I'm not sure. Think of a mule deer hunt. We always like to hear a good deer story. So I was wondering if you'd take us on a little journey here, and where are we going?
Montana. Eastern Montana.
All right. Big country. All right. Very nice.
Big country, cold weather, minus 13.
Whoa.
And, it was cold. I believe this was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I took a group of 2 high school girls on this hunt.
Wow.
And it was so cold that it made your lungs and eyes hurt just being outside.
What time of year was this?
November, end of November.
Minus 13 in November. All right. You have my attention.
Minus 13. It was freezing. And these girls, bless their hearts, hunted their guts out. The one girl put a shot on a deer and just wasn't as good of a shot as we'd like, obviously. And we had to do some tracking and follow up with the deer. And we spent all day following up with this deer and finally caught up to it, tracking it through the snow. And she got another shot on it, and it was successful in taking the deer. And her and me and the other little girl that was there, and Lloyd Ketchum, which was our guide, quartered this deer, and we packed it out in one trip on our backs. And I used my tripod, and I hung the 2 front shoulders on my tripod and put it over my neck. Lloyd packed out the head and the cape, and the girls each packed a hind quarter of the deer out. And I'm going to tell you right now, the breaks of Montana over there in eastern Montana are rough. It's big country. We had lots of snow on the ground, and I think the daytime highs were 8.
Wow.
And these girls persevered all day long. It was an unbelievable journey of mental fortitude. I mean, from these girls, not one complaint. They had smiles. We were singing, being goofy girls, packing out deer, and it was a really cool trip.
Were you all on foot the whole time?
Yes, we were on foot. And
where was base camp?
We were a couple hours from camp. In that particular area, we have to stay in town because there's no camp out there. But yeah.
Gotcha. So you stayed in town, and you hit the field in the morning, or the woods, and we're talking big, steep terrain, or what are we talking about for terrain?
Yeah, eastern Montana, there's not a lot of trees out there. It's mostly kind of rolling hills, coulees, and expansive country. Lots of places for deer to crawl in these little coulees and hide, and lots of rocks and snow, and just bitter, brutal cold.
And how long did it take you to find the animals that you're eventually killed?
Well, that particular hunt, those girls and I hunted 3 days on that one in particular.
Okay, all right. And was it a spot and stock type of style?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much all of the deer hunting that I do is spot and stock.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever shot a deer out of a tree stand. Well, I did a whitetail once. What state was that in? I don't even remember. But I've shot a whitetail one time out of a tree stand, I think, in my whole life.
Okay. So everything else is it's using good binos, finding the animals, and then getting close enough for a gun or a bow shot.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty hardcore. And minus 13 weather. And was it deep snow as well?
I think we had like 6 inches of snow, 4 to 6 inches.
That
not bad.
adds to the level of difficulty, no question about it, even though it's not super deep.
Sure.
But plenty. Sure. There's plenty for a minus 13 day.
For sure, yeah.
Right.
Minus 13 morning, yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right, I have 10 rapid fire questions for you, Kristy, and I didn't prep you for this, so I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, what's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Be patient.
Okay, what's your biggest pet?
Be patient because, do you want me to elaborate or I don't know?
Sure, yeah, go ahead, absolutely.
What I have found is, especially like with elk hunting, you'll have a bull bugle and then it'll stop and people just want to go blowing through timber and blowing through bedding areas and they don't want to wait for the right conditions. They don't want to wait for the wind to change and they just want to go, 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 go. They don't want to slow down and listen. And I've learned that most of the time, elk, deer, whatever you're hunting, they're not in a real big hurry. I mean, they have a few needs in life. They have food, water, need for cover, sleep, shelter,
Yeah.
Security, that deal. If they've eaten and they're not sleeping, they're going somewhere, but it's usually not in the hurry. As Americans, we want to be in this big hurry to get somewhere. And we often walk by things that we shouldn't be walking by or walking over and pushing through. And so patience is something that is learned. If you're bow hunting and you have elk below you and it's in the morning, you don't want to go down there. You want to either try to get below them or you want to wait for the wind to change. And then, once the wind's right, then go down. So it's just learning to be patient and waiting for that right moment, because when you make that mistake, sometimes you don't get another chance. Right.
Yep. That's a good one. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I don't know. My biggest pet peeve? Oh, geez.
Like what really, what if somebody does something that really bugs you? Like, what's that one thing?
No, I don't know. I'm pretty easygoing.
Okay. All right. Maybe you don't have one. It's possible.
I don't know. Okay. I don't have like that one thing that's like, oh my gosh, you chewed your gum well and scratched your fork on the dinner plate. What I mean? I don't know.
All right, no problem.
I don't have anything weird like that.
All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, speaking of the one thing, we a lot of us tend to have these things that we kind of consider good luck charms or things that we just need to have with us or we want to have with us because they're meaningful in some way in our backpack, and it drives us crazy if we leave it in the truck. What's that one thing for you?
I'm not sentimental with anything like that.
Gotcha. All right, very good.
Yeah. As long as I have the gear to get me through the day, then I'm good.
Then you're all set.
I would say the one thing that would drive me nuts leaving behind is my chapstick.
See, there you go. See, you do have
I have to have chapstick.
Chapstick, yeah. That's a good one. How old are you today, Kristy?
35.
35. Knowing what you know today, what would you tell the 20-year-old Kristy Titus?
Study abroad.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Go to college abroad. It's just one thing that I've always regretted not doing. I love traveling and I love culture. And I never flew on an airplane until I was 20 years old. And I went once, which I'm like the case in point of failure to launch to the umpteenth degree. I've lived within 3 miles of my parents my entire life, excluding 6 months of my life, which I travel now. But I wish that I would have been a little more bold when I was 20 and taken that time and went abroad and worked in a coffee shop and immersed myself in other cultures and had some experiences when I didn't have so many roots, and just saw the world in the perspective of people, because I think it makes us more empathetic. I think it makes us better human beings if we learn to relate to people that are outside of what we consider the norm.
Yep.
Because the world is a very small place, and sometimes we get really caught up in our own selves and our own lives, and seeing the world is important.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think you're absolutely right. Very nice. All right, you're at a hunting convention, and you bump into a total stranger in the foyer of the lobby, and they strike up a conversation with you. They ask you what you do for a living. What do you say?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
That's usually what I say. You know what? That's a really good question. That's hard to explain. Most of the time I'm pretty funny. Like, I really don't like to talk about what I do a lot with strangers in that regard because it is so complicated. So I just tell people, sometimes I'll tell them I'm an outdoor writer, or sometimes I tell them I do television production, and just kind of keep it simple.
Okay. Very nice. All right, you get your own billboard on the side of a highway, anywhere in the country. It's a white canvas. What do you say? What do you put on that billboard?
Dream big.
Awesome. Love it. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had egg whites, wild turkey, and ham scrambled together.
That's excellent. Sounds so good. All right. If I say the word successful to you, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
Who's the first person?
Yep.
Oh, boy. I don't really have a person because I think success is measured on many fronts. Some people, success is having a family and children. Some people, success is having money. Some people, success is having a career. Some people, having success is having a solid relationship with God. So I would say, what type of success are we defining? Because success is viewed in many, many ways, in my mind.
All right. That's a good answer. What's a day in the life of Kristy Titus look like?
Am I at home?
Yes. We'll put you at home.
Or am I on the road?
We're going to put you at home. The
life.
next question is the one on the road. What's the home life look like?
Home life, I wake up, I eat breakfast, which is my ham and my oatmeal.
Yeah.
I go do cardio. I come back to my house, take a quick shower, and I sit at my desk to do work at my desk, shoot my bow during the day. When I'm home, I shoot pretty much every day. I do CrossFit at night around 5:30, usually that class.
Okay.
In the summer months, I wait until 8 or 9 at night, and then I run. If I'm not doing CrossFit, I'll run 6 miles.
Okay.
I hang out with my mom every day and my dad. I spend a lot of time with them, have dinner with them. Either I'm having dinner at their house or they come to my house for dinner.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. And what's a hunting day in the life? Which would be your road trip? What's that look like?
So I'm hunting elk.
Yeah, let's go with elk.
I'm in the woods at the crack of dawn. And depending on where I'm at, sometimes I walk in the dark to a certain point, under the cover of darkness. And I hunt from daylight to dark.
Okay.
I like to take a nap under a tree if possible.
Nice.
And walk out at night and start all over again.
All right. Unless you bag something.
Unless I bag something, but even then, that's where the work begins.
Right. Very nice. That's it. Those are the 10 questions. Kristy, this has been awesome. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, and it's fascinating to understand where you've been and what kind of brought you into the world of fitness and how you're applying it to the deer woods and the elk woods and the big woods out west. And it's just been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more over the last hour.
Oh, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Cool. We'll let you know when this airs. Where can we find you, Kristy, on social media?
Everything is just at Kristy Titus. So Facebook.com/Kristy Titus, Twitter at Kristy Titus, same with Instagram. It's KRISTYTITUS. And my website's KristyTitus.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you. I hopefully come back another day.
If you listen to Kristy, it kind of motivates me to get in shape more than I am already.
No doubt about it. I tell you what, she's got a drive like no other.
It's true. And I have changed my diet over the last several months. I'm about 6 months into a regimented diet plan. I've definitely dropped some weight. And I consider exercise like when I was hoofing it through the woods of New Hampshire trying to find turkeys. And so I always drop pounds during deer season or turkey season. There's no question about it. Where I get in trouble is when I get off my diet, usually in the summertime because of the ice cold beer that goes along with hanging out and doing some fishing on a boat. That's usually my downfall, I have to admit. But summertime brings great fishing, and I think this year I'm just going to pay attention to that little beer issue that I enjoy so much during the summertime.
It seems like I thin down throughout the summer, and then it seems like I go in hibernation in the winter. Even though last winter I did, I worked out a lot last winter, and hopefully keep through that. And right now I'm focusing on just keeping a good work ethic and keeping that sweat flow going throughout the summer months here in Ohio. But hopefully this winter my mindset gets back in the gym real hard and go at it again.
Yep. I'm with you. So I'm hoping that some of the winter months brings some, or even pre-winter months, technically late deer season, brings some snow on the ground, so I can get out to some big woods and do some tracking and stalking. But I'm going to have to be in shape for that. So I plan to keep a regimen throughout the plan here, and Kristy definitely gives us some viewpoints and some pointers on how to do that. So thanks to Kristy Titus for joining us and giving us all that she knows about physical fitness relative to hunting. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
We do, Jay.
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
My Chubby Tines tip of the week is go through and walk your deer trails. You know that these spring storms come rolling through, and the growth of the spring forage. If you got a deer trail that you're hunting on and you want to keep hunting on that deer trail and make sure that you keep using it, make sure that they got good, clear access through that trail. Get you a chainsaw and your quad, or just go for a walk. Set of hedge trimmers or a pair of loppers, whatever you want to take with you. Just go down through there and trim out that walking trail so that they're comfortable and they're going to keep passing right down the same trail through this season.
It's a great tip, man. With full growth, with all your foliage out there, this is a good time to get out there because it won't ever be any worse than this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, trees get blowed over through the storms, and maybe just go in there and take a chainsaw and cut 2 foot of section out that's crossing your trail.
Right.
It'll give them good, comfortable access so that they'll, deer are notoriously known for taking the easiest way.
That's a very good point. I remember there was a place I was hunting. There was a lot of deer hanging out in this one area, and I had been invited in to hunt it. And we had a pretty bad storm come through, and it had blown down a lot of the trees around where my tree stand was. And I realized that the path that they had been coming in on was now obstructed, so I actually made the path even better and moved some of the logs out of the way and gave them an even easier path, because the rest of it was all blocked up, and it worked like a charm. They actually followed the path in that I created for them.
It's like a funnel.
Like a funnel. You can create your own funnels in the woods if you know what to do and where to look.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good, man. That's a great tip. Well, thanks to Kristy Titus for joining us on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. Thanks to Morse's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines Tip of the Week. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here on the microphone?
Well, right now in the hayfield, Jay.
In the hayfield. Well, I guess with your cell phone, we could probably still reach you out there, although you probably wouldn't hear the phone ring and probably aren't checking your text. Much worse, you probably couldn't read them because you're bouncing around.
Roger that. Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Hit me up on Instagram @ChasingAntler. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Best place to reach me is jay@bigbuckregistry.com. That's my email address at the show. And just shoot me an email there. I respond to every single email that comes in. I would appreciate a review on iTunes. If you're an iTunes user, please just do a search for the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review if you are a fan of the show. And subscribe. You can always subscribe to the show on your podcast app through the iTunes podcast directory, and you can get our notification that our show comes out every single Saturday at 5 a.m. and any in-between episodes if we do those. Also, you can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. If you'd like to submit your picture of the buck that you shot anytime in the last however many years, it doesn't matter. We like new pictures and old pictures. Old pictures are my favorite, actually. But if you'd like to learn more about that and be featured in front of 200 plus thousand, I don't even know how many we have right now, die-hard deer hunting fans, go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. You can download our app at bigbuckregistry.com/app. If you have a Google phone or Android phone, you might want to check out the other app, which is bigbuckregistry.com/G-app. And you can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/bigbuckregistry, and on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry. I think that's all the major social media places that we're hanging out, but
it's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Big buck, everywhere big buck.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in with us every week. We sure do appreciate it. I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott.
This is another great episode of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.